Welcome. This is the Seek Coach podcast, a podcast exploring the Seek principles and how to live them in the 21st century. Episode 3: The Roller Coaster Called Life. Welcome everybody. This is the Seek Coach. This is Avtar Singh, your host for the podcast. I welcome you back for another episode. Wishing you are blessed, wishing you are well, and all on your journeys of self-development and improvement. I do hope you had a chance to check episode 2, which is called Guru Nanak's Social Impact and the Iceberg Model. It's definitely worth listening to, and it gives you a tool to self-reflect on your own areas that you can develop and improve your skills and experience and have a greater impact on the world. So do check that out. So let's begin episode 3, the roller coaster called life. As we know, life is full of ups and downs. This is something that everybody says. It's quite common. So I chose to call this journey a roller coaster because that's what roller coasters do. There's lots of ups and downs along the way. Life is all about dealing with these ups and downs on the roller coaster, and how good we are to deal with them really affects our well-being, our mental health, the quality of life we lead, and also the ability to live our true potential. So the learning outcomes of this episode is to give you a deeper understanding of the journey of life, an insight and guidance offered by our gurus, and also then to empower you to take control of your perspectives on these life events, both up and downs, and potentially leading a more fulfilling life, being able to deal with the stresses that life throws at you. So what is the purpose of the journey of life? It's the pursuit of happiness, right? I'm not too sure, because there is a lot of pain in the world. So we hear that quite often, the pursuit of happiness. Our cultures, our society, our media, our advertising, all point us to getting or gaining things, to be a success, to obtain certain things like love, companionship, power, influence, things. And it's quite difficult for people to navigate their understanding around all of this bombardment of messages to gain happiness. I mean, we have a strong culture in the Punjabi community around must get educated, must get married, then have kids, must then have successful kids. You know, it's the same rhetoric. But who decides that rhetoric? Who decides that that will give you happiness? So society has a lot of answering to do around this. And I think it's a bit of a fallacy that happiness should be pursued, or definitely is guaranteed, or is the end goal. Have you ever found that you're doing something just because you think you should be doing it, and that it doesn't actually fulfill you? Well, that's an inner instinct. It's something within you that tells you there's a conflict. And sometimes you do something and you feel really fulfilled. You don't realize the time went by. You really were engaged in the activity or the experience, and you felt, why can't I do this all the time? Because I actually enjoy it, but it may not make sense to anybody else. So some of these feelings must be coming from somewhere, giving you some insight in what you really enjoy, what you don't enjoy. So I think it's important to discuss what is happiness, what is pain, what is pleasure, what is misery. There's an important line written by our gurus. I will say it in Gurbani first, then explain the meaning of it. The line is, Dukh daru, sukh rog bhaya. The meaning of this is dukh is sadness and pain. Daru means medicine, so something that's supposed to be good for you. Sukh is happiness and pleasure. Rog is a disease, so meaning that it's not good for you. So the gurus flipped the concept around, pain and pleasure, and said pain is good for you and pleasure is not so good for you. we really need to reflect on the meaning behind this because it's not literal. You can look at both pleasure and pain in a few ways. You can look at it on a timescale, so short term and long term for both. And I think an example will explain the concept much clearly than I can. Take for example exercising. In the short term, you may feel it's a painful activity. It's something you want to avoid. So if you avoid it, you have short-term pleasure because you're avoiding the pain. But we all know that some shape or form of exercise is beneficial for you and helps you stay healthy for longer. So if you invested in that in the short term, you would make a long-term gain by living a more able, healthier lifestyle. The same can be said for our relationship with food. If we indulged in the short term, we would have short-term pleasure. The consequences would be in the long term in regards to our health for overindulging in our food habits. So the Guru's concept is about looking at pain and pleasure and putting it into perspective and taking the wider view and understanding what good things are really bad for you and what bad things may potentially be good for you. For example, education takes time, effort to learn new things. You have to sacrifice your pleasures effectively. You might have to sacrifice just relaxation time or spare time that you have to do other things to invest in the long term, which then pays off. The difficulty is we look at short-term wins. We get addicted to the short-term pleasures, the feeling we get, and then we get used to wanting to get the same hit. And the pain comes when eventually we don't get those pleasures for whatever reason, because life is full of ups and downs. So the more comfortable you make yourself, the more unprepared you are for the downs. Even if the negative events are minor, they feel like major negative events because we're so used to being comfortable. So there is a form of pleasure you gain out of dealing with challenges in life. The more challenges you face, the more you learn, the more you then know how to deal with those challenges, and then you're able to deal with bigger challenges. Life is a progressive state of dealing with difficulties and becoming more resilient. When you become resilient, you're able to then deal with the downs and really appreciate the good times when you get them, and understand that the good times will not always last, but you're prepared to deal with the worst. An example of this is perfect if you look at two different teenagers. One is a teenager who wants to have the latest smartphone because everybody in their class has one. If for whatever reason the parents do not want to buy a new smartphone for them, that teenager will feel pain because they no longer fit in with their friends or not cool enough. So let's flip that teenager to a country where education is not available, but they want to be educated and progress and become somebody, but yet they do not have access to education. They will feel a different kind of pain because of that circumstance. So the important thing is we can't judge either teenager because they are brought up in two different places, two different families, two different environments, and for them, both those scenarios represent pain for them. So where perspective comes in is if you suddenly switch those two teenagers with each other. Suddenly the teenager who wanted to have the latest smartphone would experience a place that doesn't even have education, let alone a smartphone, and most likely will be humbled by the experience and appreciate everything they have, even if it is not the latest smartphone. And then the other teenager suddenly is in a country where there's education, and they will be appreciative of having that opportunity to be educated and make the most out of it. So in order to change your perspective or take control of your perspective, you need to take ownership of all of the events that happen in your life, whether they are good or perceived to be bad. Because when you take ownership, you're then able to accept and understand and take power over how you want to react or feel towards those events. And by no means is this easy, and our gurus acknowledge this. So this is why they gave us tools like ensuring we do seva, which is selfless service, which humbles you by doing service for others with no expectation of reward. And that gives you an appreciation for others and keeping your ego low and your expectations calm. The other key tool is Simran, which can be translated as reflection or meditation, but realistically it's reflecting within yourself to put things into perspective and appreciate and have gratitude for what you have, because we have a lot. I mean, every day you wake up, you have another day to experience in this world and make a difference, and we sometimes forget that because we get embroiled into our daily duties and routines. So the gurus knew the importance of reflective time and taking time out of your day to take a journey inwards, because we spend most of our days focused on the external experiences. The only thing constant in life is change, and we've known change since the day we have been born, both internally and externally. Also, it's important to know that we will always experience difficult times, but the most important thing to remember is, as we know, everything is changing all the time, that those difficult times will pass. And we will no doubt learn something from those experiences, and if we really reflect on those, we become stronger and more resilient and able to then deal with much more in life. And we have access to great inspiration just by looking at Sikh history. A lot of our gurus had to go through a lot of difficulties, and it's always been for the betterment of society. So that's always an inspiration we can look towards, because we can see the sacrifices that were made for society and the good of the world. As Sikhs, we are very privileged to have such a rich history to refer to and take inspiration from. So to wrap up, let's summarize what we've gone through. Life is constant change. It's always going from good to bad, day and night, etc. And that would always continue. So we must be aware of this, because on our roller coasters, we have unique bumps, both highs and lows. And we are all on our own journeys with different backgrounds, experiences, cultures, etc. We mustn't judge ourselves comparing to other people, because our journeys are unique, and we can no doubt learn from others and take inspiration, which no doubt can help us on our own journeys. So, happiness and sadness is a state of mind. It's a way that we feel. A way we feel because of external or internal environments, and it's the reaction that we have to those events. So the real power is knowing that we can control, or at least condition ourselves to control the extent of how good or bad we can feel, dependent on external experiences. And taking ownership of all of our issues is the first step to gaining that power and not blaming others. We also learnt that the gurus gave us tools like seva, selfless service, and Simran, contemplation, reflection, to help us on our journeys in life, to help us deal with the challenges and to appreciate the good times. We also talked about perspective. Perspective is everything. What do you want? Short-term pain, long-term gain, or short-term gain, long-term pain? And we understand the balance between those two different concepts, and the fulfillment we get is predominantly from long-term gains, and those are the softer things that make us feel good compared to the materialistic or monetary gains that we feel good about for a short period only. So I wanted to end the episode with a famous quote by Bruce Lee, which says, "Assume nothing, expect everything." So this is in preparation for life. Expect the unexpected, because that is what life is full of, surprises. And being complacent or in the pursuit of happiness only is a fallacy. And we can see that in examples in history, especially for our Sikh gurus who had lots of challenges throughout their lives, and they were steadfast in their purpose of delivering social change for the betterment of society, and we should take inspiration from that. So I hope you found this episode useful. As always, I welcome your feedback, and there's a number of places you can get in contact with me. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook. Just look for The Sikh Coach, all one word. Or you can email thesikhcoach@gmail.com. Look forward to hearing from you. I wish you all well. Stay blessed. This is The Sikh Coach signing out. Till next time. Goodbye. Thank you for listening to the Sikh Coach podcast. If you found this episode valuable, do share with your friends and family, and do give us feedback. You can email us at thesikhcoach@gmail.com or find us on Facebook. Just search The Sikh Coach podcast and follow us on Instagram at The Sikh Coach. Thank you for listening. Stay blessed.